louder. We begin at 12:30. 6:30, I think, next time. So a few more minutes. Yay! Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, I can hear you. Can you hear me clearly?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I can see you. It's bright.
Okay, good. For now. I know I've
Fun.
got a light if it goes a bit dark.
I'll turn up my volume so I can also hear you. Okay, we're doing this.
We are.
We have about 3 minutes until starting, but we can definitely start by grounding. So for transparency, I came into this space also feeling a little. Whew. So I'm gonna share with us the practice that I just did. I just did some breathing and humming, and that really helped a lot. So yeah, and I didn't feel too called to like control what the breathing felt like. I'm feeling. So just a moment to let's like feel where we are, feel how we're arriving. Maybe you want to stretch your chest, maybe your shoulders. You want to hold yourself. And just allowing the breath to move through the nose, out through the nose or out through the mouth. Just a couple more breaths like that. And after 2 more breaths, I'm gonna invite some humming. So for the humming, I'm gonna inhale deeply into the tummy. And on the exhale, humming. Inhale. And exhale. Last time. Okay. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Giving some people some more time to join because it's exactly 12:30. But yeah, hey,
Hi.
we're doing it.
We are. We are.
And also I'm just gonna check if everybody else is hearing us as well as persons are coming in. Are you hearing clearly?
Give us a sign.
Give us a thumbs up or something.
Oh.
Hearing? Not hearing? All right. Maybe they're typing. Who knows? Yes, amazing. Kaya says I can hear clearly, and I think Jada earlier said that they can hear clearly too. right. All right. Well, with me today, I am Abeni, and with me today is, how do I address you publicly? Like, hey, this
I
is
say Nats now because it's a bit
Nat.
easier.
Okay.
Nats, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for joining me, Nat,
Thank
on
you for inviting me.
the platform. And we are continuing this series, Strategies for Building Community Through Repair, and going deeper under the layers of what that looks like from different perspectives. And this is again not to like fix anything. This is a conversation that we're going to be continuously having. We have tools, you have tools. We're here to share from what we have going on and what we have moving through us. And I think Max is an amazing person to join in on this conversation. I think Max is amazing. And with that said, introductions. So,
Thank you.
and like if I ask you to introduce yourself, I know that sometimes that feels like, okay, let me give you my bio rundown, but like, who are you? What brings you here to this convo, or what brings you here to this kind of convo, and how are you showing up today?
First of all, thank you for asking me. This is also quite a vulnerable thing to talk about on the interwebs. Where people can watch it later as well. But who am I? Well, I'm many things. How I first met you was through teaching pranayama, which is the science of the breath. That is a practice that came down through my ancestral lineage, and I was teaching it during the pandemic quite a lot when a lot of things were happening. But now I also work as a consultant in the UK and actually internationally now, around issues to do with climate justice. But a lot of what I do in the UK is around anti-racist work. And that's just a very broad term at the moment these days that can mean like anything that might help anything. But how did I come to this work? Actually, I started working for an organization run by an amazing person called Martha Awajobi. We found that operating in the context of the UK, which right now is very intense, there is a need for us to understand what conflict is between ourselves and what is like leakage from the external. And I kind of feel like in the US it's similar. In a lot of Western countries we're dealing with like a rise of fascism on the backdrop of a genocide, and I feel like there's a lot of those feelings that get misplaced in community because we're not allowed to talk about them openly. So, or we can, but it comes at a big risk. So I came to this work trying to understand like how do we better deal with conflict generally, but as part of the queer community in the UK and in Jamaica, it's a common topic of discussion. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere and in everything. And how are you showing up today? Like, how are you feeling?
How am I feeling? Honestly, I was so excited for this conversation. We had such good talks about it, and I was armed with like my books and my theories and like everything. And yesterday I walked into literally a station full of like white supremacists, and it just kind of stunned me into, yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy time in the UK. The last 24 hours, I would say, have been a bit mad, like unusually intense. To the point where we were like, yeah, people are scared to leave the house kind of vibe. So I'm a bit tense about it. I don't know how to explain actually how I feel about that, but we're in it. I'm in the soup.
Yeah, it's really interesting right now. Talk about making. But yeah, thank you for coming even through within all of that.
Of
And
course.
hope you can feel as hell as possible here. And if at any point it's getting a little too much, we can just like start to kiki about something else, you know. But yeah, thank you again for joining me. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, you already answered who you are, and I kind of wanted to get into your business about how you've been practicing repair. Like, you don't have to give me examples or anything, but like what it has been, how has it been showing up for you practicing repair within your own relationships, within your own any relationships, could be work, could be interpersonal, romantic, platonic, any ships. Um, how have you been
Mm-hmm.
or being able to implement?
I think the main thing, and I don't think I just speak for myself, but I think everyone's been going through a lot of conflicts generally. Whenever we talk about what's happening in the world, and I think that the more vocal you become about things that we're seeing, the more you experience conflict in general, because you're going against the norm, which is to not talk about it or to have a mainstream view about it. And currently, like, I feel like people are being punished for even just like not supporting a genocide. So at the moment, I think I'm trying to remember that nothing is happening in isolation. Like, whatever relationships I'm in, whether it's my partner or my family or my friends or even at work, you know, I'm remembering that like this is almost like an ecosystem of multiple relationships, and that whatever's going on in one can have a knock-on effect on the other. But the whole context is that everybody's kind of like dealing with a lot of similar stuff right now, or maybe not similar stuff, but like we're all kind of watching the news right now. So I think something that I've been working on when it comes to repair is just moving to the point of having a conversation about accountability swifter and more confidently, but not from a viewpoint that one person is right and one person is wrong, or that one person must be telling the truth and the other person must be lying.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that I've noticed that that's how it's always been going on. One right, one wrong, one good, one bad, one, you know, like this kind of binary that kind of limits our thinking. Now, in a situation where everybody's burnt out, emotionally, mentally, you know, is it really as clear as that? Like, is it just one person doing the right thing or one person doing the wrong thing? Like, or is it that two people are burnt out and just really struggling to like figure it out with each other? And we're really brainwashed to think in binaries. Like, we're really encouraged to be like good and evil, and I wonder where that comes from. But we can't narrow it. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. There are multiple truths at all times. And I think for me, repairing relationships, it's hard to sit there and hear someone else's perspective that you don't agree with, that feels like a bit intense on you because they're calling you out on something. And it's very difficult to not jump to defend and to actually listen and be like, well, at the end of the day, that's their truth. It's just as valid as mine. And allowing that to be just that. Like, we don't have to force one another to see each other's point of view. We don't have to like go into a conflict where one is the winner and one is the loser. We can just allow some things to just be different, and like that's okay. And we're supposed to be different. We're actually supposed to be different.
Yeah.
And think differently.
Yeah, and as you like, yeah, as you shared that, I thought about how simple it might sound, like audibly, but just thinking about even if I'm having a conversation with somebody I love, and to me in that moment I'm like, okay, I know how I felt about what happened. I know what happened on my end of things, and then the person shares what they were feeling, and I'm just like, but bro, like I felt like this is how it happened over here, and like hearing you talk about how there's also a way that we're brainwashed to think about who is right or which side we need to go on, or even like the picking sides thing is just something that is so embedded in the way that we navigate conflict or just any kind of dynamic, like finding a side to go to and aside, meaning one or the other, as opposed to like what do you resonate with, or what do you feel called to, or what are you being invited to think about, or how can I hear this person, or this thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's not just on like a societal cultural level, right? Like there's literal institutions built that way. You can
Yeah.
vote for one of two parties. You can be a victim or an offender in a court of justice. You are either going to heaven or hell. You know, these are ideas of like good and bad and evil and like right and wrong. They come very far before us, and they've been used as a tool to exercise like punitive measures, basically. So it's deeply connected. Punitive is linked to punishment. So like the idea that somebody is right and the victim, and somebody was the wrong and the person, like the persecutor or whatever, and they should be punished. And it's rooted in the idea that if that person is punished, it equalizes the situation somehow, and everybody goes back to some sort of norm, right? But we see how that doesn't work. Like, so many people get imprisoned and it has not changed the problems that were causing the crimes to happen in the first place. So we know that this idea of right and wrong, or good and evil, hasn't really assisted us to really unpack and prevent harm from happening. We just assume that's how you deal with it. But we get brainwashed from very, very early. Like, even when you're fighting with your sibling, a parent figure will come in and figure out who was right and who was wrong. If you were wrong, you might get punishment. You might get punishment at home. You might get punishment in an institution at the church or something, or you might get punished at school. You might, you know, there's so many different systems. It's not just one system alone that is reinforcing this idea that if you have done something wrong, there's a lot of messaging out there to say you are a bad person. And that is really what sometimes people take in and internalize. Not that they may have done something to hurt another person, or not, depending who's accusing them. So
that note brings me to like something we talked about on our call earlier last week, today's Sunday, jeez. So it was the overstating harm, the shame bits, and also the cancel culture bit. I don't know if they can all be like linked.
They're related. They're connected.
Yeah, like I really want to like see how we can like bring that in, because I'm thinking about, as you said, yeah, if someone is responsible for like their actions did hurt or harm, and there is a lot of pain there, a lot of like accountability to be taken there. How do we not go from like, oh, this person did something harmful, hurtful, wrong, to we need to get you out? Kind of like mirroring the judicial system, or like the political ways of like capital punishment. It's kind of like a very subtle way of imprisoning people. So I'm just thinking about the ways that we can shift that narrative, but also how does it show up? The shame, the cancel, the yeah. We talked about it a bit.
Well, I think going to your first point about, gosh, which one should I start with? The cancel culture or the
What did you say?
which part should I start with, Afe? The cancel culture or the shunning? Well, actually, do you know what? I wrote something down about shunning.
Okay.
Let's explain what we mean by shunning.
Mm-hmm.
So shunning is like when you literally refuse to speak to another human being or a group, and you exclude their information. You want to actively obstruct access to them, or to platforms or media platforms or things like that. You don't want them to be heard, and you basically want to pretend that they don't exist at all. Now, that's described, I would say that's like a form of shunning, and it's something that we do to compromise somebody's belonging to a group. Now, something that we were talking about is in queer communities, this is life-threatening actually, because a lot of us or a lot of people in our community do not have, or have never felt like they belong, or have never had belonging in their family home, for example. And so when they find it in community and they're kind of like threatened, or it looks like they might get shunned, that can have an extreme reaction in their body, and can be detrimental. And it's not something you can really take back after you try to like shun someone from a community. It's not something you can just be like, oh, well, I've forgotten over it now, so you can come back. Like, that's not quite how it works once you've destroyed someone's livelihood. You know, it's kind of already. So I kind of feel like that is some similar to cancel culture, but it's bred with another like another problem that we have, which is like so when we're talking about active obstruction, sometimes people believe that, you know, if I stop this person from getting any work, then that is like a form of punishment that they deserve for what they did. But that's going out of your way to kind of like harm somebody else. And I want to preface like this, as we did before, abuse is real. Like, abuse happens and abuse is awful. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like when there is an absolute need to put quite a rigid boundary with somebody because they are a harm to multiple people and they can't stop it and they can't help it. Or they can't, like, they won't stop it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's out of control. You have to put a rigid boundary around that because you just have to, right? What I'm talking about is when there is actually what is probably a conflict and it's escalated and overstated as harm. And it comes with this kind of expectation on the rest of the community to force this person to take accountability, which I would love, like, was a real thing that could really happen. But when you force somebody to take accountability and they're not walking towards it themselves, first of all, it's more than likely going to be performative, and it doesn't have any guarantee that they're going to change their behavior. If anything, they might feel more defensive and maybe even do it more. But also, I sometimes feel like people get stuck when they're asked, what do you mean by like what does accountability look like for you? Like, is it like, what does it mean to you, like accountability? Like, I notice, especially here in the UK, like people get stuck at that part because they don't actually know what they want or need from that person. They just know that they need to do something. And because we're not sure or we're not confident in talking about what accountability looks like, we haven't necessarily seen many good examples of it. We slip into this punitive thing where we believe they should be punished. And again, that doesn't actually stop the problem. And we know of situations and circumstances where harm has been overstated. That person didn't even necessarily cause harm in that way. They maybe had a conflict, but they didn't necessarily cause harm in that way. And they've now been shunned from community and their livelihood has been destroyed, and like they didn't actually do anything to deserve it, which is really dangerous. Yeah, sorry, this is some of the things that we were speaking about. I should let you respond to it.
Yeah, so a while ago when you mentioned just like persons, I'm thinking about how a lot of our personal value systems come inside of what we think people deserve. I'm not thinking about it like, how do we come to a determination of saying that this person deserves to be publicly shamed or publicly shunned or publicly like punished? And then something earlier you said about the like us expecting the community to jump on that kind of wagon of, okay, this person did this, and yes, they do deserve that. And I think that points to a larger issue of, again, the overstating of harm, but also maybe, again, having some kind of space or resources or kind of support around acknowledging harm as opposed to like hurt, as opposed to a conflict, as opposed to
just a disagreement.
Agreement, because in the body sensationally they might feel similar. So I'm like thinking about the ways that we can actually start to point to the difference. which is why when I asked you like about the shame and the culture, like using the context that we have right now, like how do we start to differentiate harm, hurt?
Okay, well, I am a big fan of somebody called Care who runs Erotics of Liberation, and I really learned so much. I joined their Liberation Practice Field course, and I learned like so much. But 100% recommend that course. What I realized is that there are two things that can happen in the body when someone's basically said, "Look, you've hurt me," or okay, worse, like, you've harmed me, right? If someone says you've actually harmed me. And a good example I use when I talk to people here is like when a white person gets told they're being racist. It's a safer one to use for the purposes of seeing what happens in the body. But basically, what that person's receiving is that they are being told that they have hurt somebody or harmed somebody in a way that they had no knowledge of or that they didn't know, and their body goes into fight or flight. Like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. Now, we know there's such thing as white guilt and white shame, but they're actually a bit different. I'm using whiteness because it's just like easier to explain so you can understand it, like what these differences are. But like guilt, if you have hurt another person, is not a bad thing. That's actually like an appropriate thing to feel. Like you should have some sort of internal something happen when you see somebody that you care about in pain because of something that, however unintentionally, you did that impacted them, right? Guilt is healthy because it's related to empathy. The fact that you are able to have empathy for this person means that you are in touch with your own humanity and theirs. Guilt is okay. Guilt is the kind of vehicle that you use to move towards accountability because you're more likely to be like, how do I make this better? How do I heal this? I don't want you to be in pain. How can I support you through this? Like, you're more likely to get to a resolution with guilt. What actually ends up happening is people feel shame that they've hurt somebody. And it becomes less about the empathy side of it around, I've hurt this person and that's really horrible and like I care about them and I don't want them to feel that way. It now becomes like, oh, this person thinks I'm a bad person, and we start to like obsess over our perception of ourselves. So like we start to become overly defensive. We might be like, but what are you trying to say about me or something? That's something that people say in the UK. What are you saying? What are you saying about me? Like it can kind of become a lot more about the perception of yourself, and that it feels just as intense and can be just as like invoke a very strong reaction in people where they feel the need to defend their name or defend their character. Even though that's not necessarily what's being called into question, it's just stating a fact, you hurt me. They start to feel like you're trying to insinuate something about their character, and you're trying to suggest that there is something defective about their character, and they're responding to you from a place of defense. More often than not, we see them then replicate the harm even more, because in like defiance that there's nothing wrong with them and how they're being, and become maybe even more indignant and double down and potentially even be worse and cause even more harm to more people. And that is largely shame. Shame is the feeling that drives that. It's not guilt, it's shame. And we see that in our community, I think, when people have been made to feel, or where it gets murky, is people have been made to feel guilty for no reason. They're not hurting anybody, they're not harming anybody, and they've just been made to feel guilty for no reason. So that's confusing. But also we've been made to feel shame. So it's very confusing, I think, for queer people, or it's difficult, it's challenging for queer people to be faced with trying to unpack what is what from these feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to pause and like share presence where we are. We're just talking about the theme of shame, and we talked about like punishment and how we how are we determining what someone's actions like deserve, and talking about the difference between guilt and shame, and guilt as a vehicle towards accountability, and us getting a little bit clearer on what accountability can look like and how it will show up. And since we're here now, Nat, I remember talking with you about socially, like how someone receives you, and like how, if it is that you have these tools and you are, say, speaking with me, a black queer person, forward facing black queer person, and there would be a kind of defensiveness around like how you white passing person, and like what that looks like for,
Yeah.
because I know that sometimes those factors play a huge part in like people being receptive to any kind of support, accountability of any kind. And I found that even my own, like, it's, say if I have a pattern of being like sharing unsolicited advice, like if it is that there's a kind of pattern for me to like be not give person space to speak, there might be other resistance if it is that I am the one that has a kind of some tools to share with
Yeah.
someone. So like just sharing a bit about like how that shows up for you when you are like in any kind of situation of even being mediator, or supporting to in repair, or even being hurt or harmed yourself, like what that looks like for you if it's too much. But
No,
these are the
it's a
questions.
good question. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is where it really gets interesting, right? Because I say interesting because I'm a bit of a nerd and I'm reading about it a lot, but it's actually really traumatic for everyone involved. However, what happens is, when we are activated into our fight or flight, we're no longer really engaging with like reason. We're just observing, like we're just sort of like taking the information for what it is and how it makes us feel. Now, as you pointed out, I'm a very privileged person, and you can see that by looking at me. I'm a cis woman, first of all, and yeah, I'm white passing in a lot of places in the world. Not so much in the UK, but well, I still am. So hearing me say you've hurt me or you've harmed me, or even if I use like words like I don't feel safe, is obviously going to invoke a very strong reaction from someone who consistently has been villainized for completely unjust reasons by people who look like me. So there's two things happening. It's not just receiving like, okay, I've hurt this person somehow. That's already a lot to take on. But then there's also this fear almost, or like beginning to already prepare to be shunned, to be punished, to be misunderstood, knowing the systems of oppression that I represent and how especially Black queer people are treated within that. So many things are happening at once. It's not as simple. And something that, again, Care like really helped me understand was through an escalation of a conflict, when it gets to a disagreement can be a bit, like you can feel a bit butthurt. Like me and you might not both like the same music, and we might be like, all right, low-key judging you. But it's not like we're gonna cry about it, we might be like, it might be a sting, but then it could escalate if I'm like, no, I think you need to see it my way, you need to see it my way, then it's gonna start to like,
even saying that, I'm like, excuse me, like ears, I was like,
use that one. Okay, let's do it the other way around. If you were like, Natalie, you need to see it my way, like I don't think it's cool that you see it like this. Like you have to understand me. I'm right. Then the disagreement could kind of starts to veer in the direction of a conflict, because now I'm like, it's not that good. So and then you could be like, so what are you trying to say about me? And then you start to become a bit more defensive, because you're like, well, what is your perception of me now? And then I could become defensive, and then it can just start to escalate. And as it starts to escalate, if no resolution gets found, what tends to happen is the person with more power in the structures around us. So in this situation, I've got white privilege, I've got cis privilege, I've got, I mean, bags of it, right? If I was to then just shut you down, knowing that on the grand scheme of things, people are going to listen to me and they're going to agree with me, or they might even enable, let's use the word enable, they're going to enable my bullshit more, then I'm using the structural power dynamics around us to bring into the conflict and harm you. And I think that that is something that does happen a lot, and we don't necessarily know in the moment, like when and how it's quite happening. And I'm using like structural stuff, like, you know, white privilege and all that they're the most harmful, to be fair. But I think we see this because there's many different types of power now, especially with social media. So like, for example, if you are somebody who has like 2 million followers and you go online, say you have 2 million followers, Afe, and you're annoyed that I was like, actually your music is not it and I'm right, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that I'm right, right? You might go on Instagram and tell your 2 million followers that I am all of these things. You might overstate what I've done to you, right? You could easily like be like, this person, don't talk to them, they're racist, they're this, they're that. You could. And because you have 2 million followers and I've got like 200, you've garnered a level of social capital in a way that I don't have access to. So there's many different types of power that we exercise over each other. If you are like more aesthetically pleasing, or let's be honest, more Eurocentric kind of beauty or whatever, and you go around being like, oh, this person was so mean to me. I think we've seen something like this happening. I shouldn't bring Cardi B into this because I love Cardi B. I actually do love Cardi B, but she said something fat phobic, and like everyone was like, what are you doing? Just stop. And she didn't stop. Like, she escalated it and she wanted to hammer her point home. And it was kind of like painful to watch, because it's almost like she used the fact that people do find her aesthetically pleasing, that she does conform to like some things that means she doesn't really experience fat phobia in that way. She used that to sort of assert her point and double down that she felt no reason to feel sorry to anybody. And by doing that, she hurt a large amount of her fan base. And it also just kind of shows like there are many ways that people just use this doubling down thing or shunning thing, like, get out of here, like, you don't belong here, we don't want you here. And that's kind of what we see in cancel culture. Like, you can just cancel someone, like they don't exist.
No, that brings me to thinking about, I mean, we did mention it, because like, what does conflict resolution look like for persons at different intersections of marginalization and oppression? I think you mentioned it just now, but earlier last week, when we were talking about people at risk for just like arriving in a situation of conflict or like disagreement by way of them just being, say, a black trans person in Jamaica. Thinking about their access kind of making it a little bit difficult for them to like step away from any kind of conflict or like choose to engage a situation differently. And I thought about how this can show up in our community building or our community spaces, and community in this in the sense, again, in our first conversation we talked about community looking different for everyone, and also community not solely being or people that we might be friends with, but persons that we might be in community with by way of our identity, by way of any intersection of, or like being in the same country, in the same like geographic community. So thinking about the ways that someone's socioeconomic background can like
Definitely
what repair looks like for them, or in the sense of community building.
I think it's important to notice if you're avoiding conflict, you know, like how we spoke about it, like essentially being able to avoid conflict happening in your life is a privilege, because most people don't have a choice. And I use the example of like a landlord situation. So if you own your own house, the chances of you getting into a conflict with your landlord are basically zero. The chances of you getting into a conflict with your housemates are lower because you would have the power in the dynamic. So you would be pretty, like, most days not constantly on edge, or your nervous system wouldn't be in a state of conflict. Now, if you're somebody who rents from a landlord and you have housemates, the likelihood of you being in a daily conflict is a lot higher. You might be having problems with your landlord, you might be having problems with your housemates, you might be constantly negotiating space with what you've paid for. You might be dealing with a whole host of things that, like, you just don't want to deal with, and when you say it, it causes a bit of conflict, right? So already, even in that differentiation from socioeconomic background, the person who's renting and the person who has to share space with multiple people is more likely to be in daily conflict, just generally, than somebody who owns their own house. And I was thinking about in Jamaica, when it comes to cars, like, something I have noticed living in Jamaica is that, you know, a certain demographic all just has access to cars, right? So if they see a conflict, they can kind of just drive away, and they can look at it and they can kind of be like, don't want to get involved in that, and drive away from it. People who do not have access to a car, if they're walking on the road and they're trying to get from A to B and a conflict happens on the road, that is not something that they can just get out of or escape from or move from. That's something that has in their life. And I think what ends up happening is we assign personality traits to someone who is in a lot of conflict. So if somebody is in a conflict with their landlord and then their friends and then their work, we attribute that to like a personality trait, rather than this person has to navigate multiple systems of which there is a much higher likelihood that they are going to experience conflict. And Black trans people are definitely far more likely to experience conflict in every single institution that they deal with, whether it's healthcare, whether it's a shop, whether it's a religious institution, whether it's walking down the street. Like, there is just so much more that could cause conflict for them to get into, that it would be wild to suggest that that's a personality trait of them. That's something that they cannot do anything about. And when we look at like conflicts, i.e. genocides that are happening across the world, that's not something that people consented to or have any choice to be in. They never did anything, they're just in it. So they can't like drive away or look away or turn it off or move up into the hill so you don't have to deal with it. Like, that's not something that all people can do. And I think we need to be really careful that we're not labeling people as like high conflict or drama, and people love to throw that word around, when actually, are we coming out of our privilege to support them navigate that conflict? Are we interrupting people who are overstating harm to those people? And people overstate harm about Black trans people, probably, I mean, it might be a bit bold to say this, but I think it's the most. Like, Black trans people are being accused of harming people in bathrooms that never actually happened. Like, that's how violent it is, the accusations that are being made against them. And they're completely overstated, like completely. And it's totally to harm them, shun them, exclude them, and discriminate against them. There's no other objective behind those statements. There's no real ask for like, oh, we want to make this better or safer for people, because there was never any harm to begin with. So this is where we see the why it's important to repair in ways where we're really trying to understand, is this a fair or like real harm that this person's caused, or is it a perception of who they are? And I think sometimes when we think people are like drama or conflict, we might be like, oh God, here we go.
Here we go again. Yeah. So that, I feel like there's lots of layers to that. There's an assumption of the kind of people who end up in situations like this. And I'm also now thinking about the ways that, at first also I was like, Jesus, how are we going to get to this spot of repair? And there's so much happening, oh my gosh. But then I thought about where we are right now and how we can start from where we are right now, given given that we're exhausted and burnt out, given that in our longing and searching for community or to be held or to feel safe, there these things are coming up. I'm feeling and I'm wondering like from where we are, how do we I mean we don't have all the answers, but how do we begin? Like I know this might start between me and you. Say we have a friendship and we are um
I'm here.
how do we,
I'm
no,
putting the light on.
oh okay, yeah. But you can
Sorry.
hear me. Okay, cool, yeah. Like how do we whoa, where to start? Cause like again, I know that maybe I have done the assumption thing like okay, here we go again. Cause like I'm in my own privileges as well. Um like where do we start? Like how can we start? And I know that your perspective will be from your perspective, clearly. But some beginning part, like say for someone who has been in isolation, queer
Yeah.
Jamaican in isolation, wanting community, um, was wrongfully accused of something, or has been harmed and has taken the space of like I don't want to engage this anymore. Whose responsibility is it to start the repair? How do
I
we?
think
Yeah,
repair
it's
doesn't have to look like making up and being friends again. Like
yeah
that
that too.
doesn't actually have to be what repair looks like.
Yeah,
Like
this
a
came.
resolution doesn't mean that everyone is happy and loves each other and we're all, going. That's not what a resolution can look like. A resolution could just be reaching a conclusion with less people being blamed for pain that they didn't actually cause. Like that they didn't actually cause. Like if I have an explosive reaction to you and you're like, I don't want to chat to this bee ever again, understandably, right? Like a good outcome of that would be that I'm not solely blaming my explosion on you when it actually had nothing to do with you. And in that situation, there's room for me to come and apologize to you. And there's room for you to listen and be like, so what was going on? Why did you do that? And then, there's space for breathing to rebuild if you want to. But you don't have to also. You might be like, listen, it's a no from me. I'm busy with other things. And that is also fine. Like,
Yeah,
that's okay. We're not entitled to be in close relation with everyone. We're not.
yeah.
We're not. You don't have to be best friends with everybody. But there was something that Kat said in their course that I think is really good tool when you're activated and in the moment. There's 4 things that our bodies crave, like in general, which is why conflicts really, really, really activate us. We all want safety. We all want connection. We all need belonging to a group or to a community, and we all need dignity in conflict. So you're not shaming someone so hard you're compromising their dignity, or you're not punishing them so awfully that their dignity is being compromised. They're still a human being. Regardless of what they've done, they're still a human being. Mm-hmm. And if we can just bear those 4 things in mind when we're in a conflict, am I safe for this person to be around? Am I going to do anything to them out of whatever I'm feeling right now? Am I capable of doing something to them that could either physically, emotionally, psychologically harm them because I'm about to lose it or something? You have to remember safety. And then connection is, when people just shun you and then block you and then that's it. Like you've broken a connection, you've not explained why, you've not like got and you've just shunned the person. For people that have been abandoned or people that have gone through like deep trauma, that is extremely activating. Like you can't just cut someone off, lock them off, block them, and like out of punishment and not tell them even why or even give them a chance to like have a conversation with you first. Like that can be really damaging to that connection. Or you start to you know, attack the relationship that you have. Like, I
Mm.
wasn't even really your friend. Like, like you thought that was friendship. That was me faking it. You know, like saying like people do that when they're in a fight. Like, you're not even really my friend. You know, like what? That's like attacking the connection to ruin the connection.
Yeah.
Um, so we're not doing that. The other thing is belonging. We're not trying to. If you catch yourself trying to have thoughts about, or like you catch yourself wanting to like deprive that person of community that they need, or deprive that person of being belonging to a group or a community or a space that they are absolutely entitled to be there, that is a form of punishment, and that is a sign that you might be veering in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Or not even the wrong, but like a harmful direction. Another thing is dignity. If you're cussing someone out so badly that you're shaming them and you're saying bad things about them to everybody else, you're trying to, you are trying to hurt that person. You're trying to compromise their dignity. Or you might bring up something that they told you, you know, ages ago that was confidential and really like vulnerable, and then use that to tell everybody, well, if you knew that, because all these things happen in a conflict. If we can just try and reduce those things, like, and remember, we're trying to make people feel safe. We're trying to make, you know, keep connections going. We're trying to make sure belonging isn't compromised and dignity. As long as we can keep that in mind when you're moving through it, you just got to do your best, I think, because we all turn into versions of ourselves that we don't like when we're in conflict. We all do.
Yeah, and just now I thought about, I think this part might be difficult to like accept, because say people are gonna, right? You said you actually talked about the texting and the emailing and the like blasting. Okay, big long message, blank 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 blah, and just block afterwards. Like, you know, right? And I'm thinking about repair in this case. This person, as you said, has cut off the connection, has devalued the whole relationship. I'm thinking about repair looking like taking a different route in the future. Now, in my body, I'm feeling okay, but how do we resolve a thing that just, you know, thinking about things outside of our control when I'm not being able to go back and fix
Yeah.
something. I'm thinking about how repair can look like, whew, choosing differently for the next relationship, or being vulnerable about how someone else's shunning of you or shaming of you has impacted how you're showing up right now. And I think that's gonna be really difficult, because as you said, it's some of it is just too painful to talk about,
Yeah.
or to like validate or think is gonna be addressed because of how things have probably happened. And I think one thing I'd like to like share is that it is possible for things to look different. Like, other relationships can hold it differently. Yes, there might be patterns in the relationships or in the dynamics or in the communities that you might um engage or end up in. But I do feel like change happens, or like there is an opportunity for things to look a little bit different. And I think one of the other things that came up was our personal standpoint, our personal like contributions to conflict, no, repair, and also conflict resolution. Because I'm thinking about how if I feel away about something in my body, like not many persons can realize when they're feeling away. They just get to
Yeah.
it, And I think again, it's like it is a privilege, because I have done a lot of work.
We're all doing that. We're all doing a lot of work.
To understand when I am triggered, as opposed to when someone is trying to fight me. Like,
Yeah. I'm awful.
is if I didn't learn the difference, if I didn't realize that there was a difference in what was happening, I wouldn't be able to see that this person in front of me is just trying to.
Yeah.
They don't know that the word sweater is gonna trigger me. They don't know that carrying me to the ice cream shop,
Mm.
like make me feel something about something that happened. So
Mm.
I'm thinking about the ways that we can move through the discomforts of like knowing that if someone is new to your life or something is into your life, not bracing for that impact, but I don't know how to say it. Don't brace for the impact. And I guess again, like this brings us to the point of this being a practice. So it's something that we have to come back to often. Kind of like what we've been saying for the first couple of conversations. It's like it's a coming back to. It's a practice. Like okay, earlier when you mentioned someone blowing up on somebody, and what could happen is the person who blows up come to you and say, "Yo, I really blew up on you," regardless of what you think is right or wrong. I could have gone about that differently. Or you as a person blown upon like, yo, you know that I don't know what you meant by that, but that really
That was a
really messed with me, and I know that you probably wanted to like share your feelings, but I couldn't hear anything you were saying. I could just see you shouting at me. Um, and thinking about where I have been and where I'm now, I'm just like, hold on, I don't.
it's hard. It's
What I'm
really like
asking, yeah, I'm not.
it's not easy. I mean, I feel like if my partner sees this, they're gonna be like, this is a joke you're talking about this. Because honestly, I'm coming from a setting where my coping strategy to deal with conflict, and I went to school with like some seriously racist white people, right? Where it was just like, if you disrespect me, I'm gonna disrespect you more. That was how I stood up for myself. Like it was like, if you do this to me, I'm gonna do it so bad to you, you'll never do it to me again. And it's really toxic, but no one taught me really that it was wrong. I was actually encouraged, probably by other things in my family, that made me think that that was a normal behavior or how you stand up for yourself. And I wasn't really taught any other way. And as an adult, that's a problem, right? Because now, if I feel disrespected, I then respond in a way that's also really disrespectful and harmful. And it just makes the situation so much worse. So I really feel you, because it's so hard when you're like, okay, I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed. I need to do something so that I don't become harmful, because yeah, I'm annoyed, right? And we're talking about explosions, right? And I think more anxiously attached people tend to go in on people maybe a bit more. But there's also this other thing.
You said anxious.
Sorry. So people who maybe like need more connection to feel safe, like want to be more intimate, like want to have more connection more frequently, more deeper, like they just have they kind of feel a bit insecure, so they need more reassurance. But avoidant people sometimes like might just check out. Like I think we've all had situations where you're trying to tell somebody like what they've done, or like not even what they've done, but like how they're making you feel, and they're listening to you, but like they're not really there. They're just like, okay, yeah, well, I don't think it was that bad. And then, people do things like that, or they might just disappear, like leave the room, leave the situation. You might not hear from them for weeks. You might bring up quite a vulnerable thing, like, hey, I feel like this happened, and then you just might not hear from them for like 4 weeks, which can send you a bit like, what just happened? Like, was it my fault? Was it this? Like it can happen in both ways. I think these are the types of things that can happen, and I think the best thing we can do is just be mindful when it's happening, or allow other people in community that you're with to help you realize that it's happening. So like, for example, if somebody comes to me and is like, this person just did this to me, watch me tell everybody about what they just did. As somebody in community with this person and the person that they're talking about, I really should say, let's talk through what actually happened. Let's just talk through it. Because if I can get that person to be in more of a like centered state, then they can respond in a way that is more sort of like proportionate to the situation than go all the way, like I think that's what we can do for each other to help, like even prevent escalations from happening in that way. We can try and like support people who are really activated to talk about it, or to connect, or just be there for them, listen to what really happened, to give them the space to feel seen and heard, and like maybe that will reduce their sort of like, I'm going to say activated state to then really punish that person. You know, like I know if someone talked to me when I'm in like ready to go for somebody, sometimes I just need to vent and then it's out and then I'm like, it really wasn't even, I've moved on now. Like, I'm not even that upset about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can support. This isn't necessarily, I think it is a bit like repair because you're kind of preventing the escalation from happening.
I was about to ask if like you feel like a huge part of repair resolution is de-escalation, like and like de-escalation not meaning like trying to keep the peace or trying to like
Exactly.
It's the act of okay, acknowledging that this is now up here. I need to get it here so we can have a conversation.
Well, this person just needs to maybe feel safe again. You could be that person that allows them to feel safe to calm down. If they feel from you that you're like taking sides, which often like people do, right? Like you're taking sides or you're defending that person, they still have this activated nervous system towards you now. But the goal is to sort of like get them to a state where they can actually hear you ask them, do you think this is going to sort of like lead to a better outcome for you and for them? Or do you think there's another way to deal with this? It's not even like there is a right or wrong answer. It's just helping somebody access the more curious part of their mind and the more like creative part of their mind, which when we're activated we kind of lock off. We don't have access to our empathy, our understanding and compassion when we are really activated, because we're trying to survive, you know, like that's what's really happening in your system. You're trying to survive. So assisting someone to feel safe enough so that they can access that part of themselves can just allow them to almost even come to the conclusion that maybe that's not what's needed in this situation. Like maybe there's something else that's needed in this situation that might be a bit safer for everybody. I think that's something that as community we can offer each other. I mean, it doesn't cost much.
Because I was about to ask, what can support for somebody look like? Somebody or a group of people who want to start this kind of work or want to be inside of this shift. Because as you mentioned earlier, you mentioned like we can't force persons to come to a space of accountability, especially if they're not on that journey from before. Like if you're not in that mindset, okay, I know that even though I might not intend to harm or hurt or cause any disagreements, by virtue of us being human, I think you talked about that too. Like by virtue of us being human, there's gonna be things that are gonna hit up against each other. So thinking about how that can look like for a group of people or a person who wants to start, like who has no idea what we're talking about, or no support, no resources. What can that first step look like? Is the case where they have to want it? I don't know.
No, I think it's like the most basic thing I think all of us can do is understand the difference between guilt and shame. And when you're feeling which, and be honest with yourself, because that's something that we can't reach into each other's body and help each other out with. Like that's something you have to kind of do yourself. Like, am I mad from a place of shame over my own actions, over how I'm being perceived, over this person, over the fact that or am I moving from a place of like guilt because I've actually hurt somebody, and like that's okay, but like I need to focus on that rather than how I'm being perceived. That's something everyone can do, because I think it's really, when I started talking about this in a workshop on Friday, it was so interesting to talk about it with parents who were like, oh yeah, I do that to my kid. Like, and they're realizing like when you kind of like punish kids and, you know, in a way where they're made to feel really bad about themselves, they end up taking that on as shame. So like explaining how things hurt others, and they naturally have empathy. So like you're nurturing empathy. And I think nurturing empathy is something else that everyone can do. Just nurture a bit of understanding of someone else's position. Nothing bad can actually come from having empathy for another human being. Like nothing detrimental. Even if you are like, I'm sure that I am in the right and this person's in the wrong, having empathy for that person is not going to necessarily change that. It can just help you respond in a more human way, even if the other person is not. The other thing you said is like, okay, what can people do? As I said, I think thinking about and being honest with yourself, whether you're moving from a place of wanting to punish somebody or wanting them to take accountability. They're different things.
Yeah, and that brings me to we're at 1:31. I'm gonna like wrap up soon. With if you have any questions or comments, please share them. I know that persons have been saying 100% facts, and Joe was saying earlier, it's not the binary, it's both and, not either or. Earlier was last week. You
I said a lot of stuff.
when you said like we're calling the police on our partner when it's
oh yeah.
I don't want to like use that as but yes, I wanted to mention the book that was referencing some of the tools from, but like for real though, like we want to shame and bring accountability to someone who has hurt us or heart is hurt. But at the roots, we want to believe that somebody from our formative years has harmed us or has like really, really, really put us in harm's way. And like how do we come to that kind of space of realizing that okay, this person does not deserve the police to be called on them. We could do this another way.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're kind of venturing into like you're basically talking about sorry, for context people, so if you're listening, there is a book called Conflict is Not Abuse. It's a book that I picked up recently that I can't put down because there's so much in it that is very relevant, particularly in these current times. One of the chapters, me and Afi were laughing, is called Calling the Police on Your Partner When It's Your Father Who Should Have Gone to Jail. And I was like, and it's called The Police and the Politics of Overstaying Harm. I think it's really difficult for survivors of any kind of trauma to even comprehend when they're seeking retribution for what they went through on different people. It's really difficult to spot, and it can bring up a lot of shame. It can bring up a lot of shame when you realize that you are triggered. You know, like it can bring back all of those feelings.
Oh, that's a whole new fucking layer. What? Okay.
All
right.
Because you don't want to admit it, and you also don't want to think about it. So ultimately, I think that's what makes people do harmful things to one another, is they are triggered from very real abuse and very real trauma. Like, I don't want that to get misconstrued with what I'm saying. It is very real, but their reaction to a conflict is overstated because the actual abuse was never dealt with by society, not by them, by society. So there is a line in this book that kind of summarizes, I think is good. Where did she put it? Mutual accountability is when we kind of like commit to each other that we're not going to underreact to actual abuse, and that we're not going to overreact to normal, healthy conflict. Like, it's so normal. I can see Carla in the chat, but like me and Carla were talking about it the other day. It's actually very normal to be in conflict with people. It's called normative conflict because it's part of everyday life. We're different human beings. With difference comes conflict. That's just it. So there's quite a lot of like conflicts that just happen. And that's okay. We don't need to overreact to those ones, otherwise we undermine actual abuse. So when we are triggered, there is shame, but we need to like remember that and I don't think it's a simple answer, because I don't think most people, I certainly can't, I wouldn't be able to tell you
Yeah.
when I'm in that place. My partner has got to know me and like lets me know when they think it's happening, but like you're not seeing clearly, you're just reliving a trauma, so it's very difficult to tell a survivor to like not think of it that way. But I think it's never too late to like learn yourself and how you may respond to certain things. But I like the term mutual accountability, because it's not just on one side that accountability has to be taken. Because if you, like you said earlier, you said something like, if somebody says the word sweater, they're not going to know that it activates you, right? But that doesn't mean you can't let them know, like,
Yeah.
you just made that worse.
Oh, and I think that brings me to thinking about the shame aspect a while ago when you mentioned like, because I have shame around the sweater situation. I feel like I can't bring up to you another person who says the word sweater 10 times in a sentence that something happened about the sweater. Like I'm now thinking about how shame does play even a part in us feeling like we cannot get to that space of getting what we need, the safety, the connection, the belonging.
But the mutual accountability would be if you said
Mhm,
that to me, Afe,
mhm.
like, you don't even have to tell me why, right? You
Yeah,
don't even have to go into it. Like, I can just say, all right, I'm going to try not to use that word. It's that simple. And like, it's gonna activate you if I do. I know that now. So try not to use that word. You
yeah.
don't need to have a long discussion about why. That just need mutual accountability is like, okay, I'm hearing you and I'll do my best. That's also not a promise I'm gonna be perfect, but I can commit to doing my
Yeah.
best at that.
And looking up
Um
at Carla says this book is currently included in our Audible, so we can get it now. Snap, snap, snaps. And someone asked which page number is that. I think we were talking about the police situation.
it can be messy for me, so sometimes we are involved too. Yes.
And
Whew.
I also
We're
like
trying to close, Carla. You just opened up a whole new one.
the let me actually put.
I think Asia, I didn't know Asia was here. Hey, Asia. I will find it and send it to you, because I might have to look in the book after this. Um, I, yeah, okay, just a very quick statement on that. Mutual abuse is very difficult because, sorry, I blipped there. Mutual abuse is a whole other conversation, but I do think there is something to be said for how we understand gender and how we understand how abuse works in intimate relationships, definitely. And I think that is a whole other discussion we would have to have another time. Because that's deep. But there is definitely assumptions on people who are more femme or people who are more masc. And when it comes to conflict and abuse, like how we read these situations, as well as what might actually have been going on. So that's I'm reluctant to open that one right now, but it is a thing, and there is still always mutual accountability to be taken. Always. I just think
Always, yeah.
every situation, two people can take accountability. There's nothing to lose by more people being honest of how they could have moved differently in that situation. I just don't see any lose to that. Like, being better from it all. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand how
And
anything
then,
bad can happen.
and I must say, like the mutual accountability thing really, really does de-escalate a lot. I must say though, you might feel that thing in your throat
Mm.
rising up, your heart ready to like take charge of the situation. You might be ready to fight, like sit with it, get choky, get like shaky. It's okay to have those kinds of sensations when that kind of space you're sharing with someone is what's happening. Um, but again, the discomfort isn't something to run from, and I feel like if I think something I've feared in my taking accountability with someone else is someone visibly seeing me have a hard time express something. I don't know if anybody else has that experience where they might not feel as good taking accountability for their actions, or saying when something hurt them, or bringing something that has happened to someone else because
Yeah.
of that witnessing, and like what witnessing looks like, and what that I don't know. There's something about how someone receives you in your vulnerability that is really important, and I feel like it can change the whole game of how something ends. So I'm thinking about that also, because like somebody might see you shaking and say, "Oh, you're lying," but you lie.
Yeah, it's a real
You
fear.
can't keep your composure. No, there's so many other things happening. Yeah.
And what you're describing of is not, I think is really common, and I don't think it's unfounded. You know, like people can respond to you really badly when you're being vulnerable. That's kind of why vulnerability is so hard. Like,
That
because
is
people can react to you in really horrible ways, and there is risks, right? I would never say there's not a risk in trying to repair situations or trying to approach situations. But
risk.
there's always risks, right? Like you might be badly received, right? Or you might experience more harm. These are real risks. They're not like just perception. Um, they are real risks. But I guess the more practice you have, I did this exercise with the group one time and it worked really well, which is getting somebody to give you the apology that you never had, and asking a really close friend to say it to you, even to just say the words so you can
Yeah.
receive an apology that
Oh.
you need to
Oh.
feel better about a situation or to like heal from a situation, is like a completely free tool that we can do for each other in community. Like, I feel like sometimes we are owed a lot of apologies that we would probably never get. And so that can make it difficult to give them, because you kind of have this like, why should I be sorry about this when no one's sorry about what happened to me? But like, if we can offer that to each other and be the apology that you need to hear for each other, I think it could do a lot of healing for us all. Just to even receive it, because you know you're never going to get it. Like, certainly I feel like with queer people, there's certain people, you know, you're never going to get that apology you deserve. You're never going to get it, and it's so difficult to like accept that sometimes, and then be really proactive about giving apologies to other people.
Yeah.
Like, but we can offer it to each other. We can, you know, if you were to write it down on a piece of paper, Afe, like something that you know you needed and you never got, and then one day when we created an environment where I offered it to you, okay, I'm not the person who did it, but you can experience what it feels like to receive it.
And to be
And
a witness in that way, yeah. Yeah.
it's hard to actually receive genuine apologies because it really touches the wound. But it's something we can offer. We can offer that to each other, and it doesn't cost anything, like oxygen. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. We can take some deep breaths, because I feel like this is a beautiful place to pause. I think I just said, when you feel victimized, you want the other person to feel the same, and making them villain does that.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay. Wow. Woo.
Well done, Afe.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining at whatever point, whether you join us live or you're going to join us next week or next year or whenever you see this. Thank you so much for joining in, and also just taking the steps to be a part of this conversation and start this kind of work. Um,
Thank you, Afe, for taking the initiative to do something like this on Instagram, like old-fashioned chat. I think there was a period where we were joking. I said I feel like there was the Instagram court of justice, Instagram criminal court of justice that
yes,
was
you
happening.
did that.
Where everybody was cancelling each other online, coming on with all their beef on each other, and it's really refreshing to talk about how we can actually repair. And so this is a really nice reason to come online and talk with you, and like a healing one.
Thank you, Carla, for the hair. The hair, your hair got complimented, by the way. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Tara.
well done.
Tara.
Oh, and if anyone wants to know about the book, this is
Yes.
the book.
And I'll drop the page of the person that you mentioned.
Yeah, Erotics of Liberation is the
Mm-hmm.
Instagram handle, and they have like small videos that aren't too much to take in.
Mm-hmm.
But I wholeheartedly recommend like downloading some of their zines, which are like really nice sized, digestible, very somatic friendly booklets, zines, just talking about some of this stuff in a way that's a bit more accessible
Yeah.
and creative.
Yeah. I think yes, Friday we're talking about the resources being accessible, whether it be persons who might not read a whole book. I'm not gonna lie. They might not read.
Mm-mm.
They might find some videos. They might want to listen in on conversations. Yeah. So we will share whatever we have. And yes, and Ngozi, we will have it on the page afterwards. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye
Bye.
bye. Doo, 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 doo.